Hello, welcome back to Whisky Me. I don't know where you all are, but where I am in Devon, I would say spring has sprung. So that's quite nice since the last time we spoke. Um, Please, great to see the comments coming in already. You've beat me to it. Please put your comments in, and we'd love to see how you guys are getting on. I have heard that a few of you have been sent the incorrect pouches, but I have been reassured that the proper whiskey is winging its way to you ASAP. Right, so I'm feeling like we want to get on and drink some whiskey and learn about whiskey. I'm going to, as always, use my coin. We're going to do a coin flip to see who's going to go first. Heads will be traditional and tails will be the explorer. It's heads. Right, as I say every time, through the power of technology, hopefully we'll have our first guest.
Hello.
How are you doing, Andrew?
Can you hear
all right?
me? I'm glad I
can
had
hear you.
my
I can hear you.
framing done perfectly, and it's been edited out. So I hope you can read backwards. There you go.
Very good.
That's it. That's
So Andrew, where
branding.
are we joining us from?
Glasgow, so outskirts of Glasgow. So I have lived here all my life. So yes, as you said, spring has sprung. It was a lovely day in Glasgow today. Very warm, still a bit chilly, but very warm in the sunshine, but still a bit chilly when you weren't in the sunshine. But yes, overall, much more positive than the torrential rain we've had for most of 2026 so far. So yes,
Makes a lovely
enjoyed it.
change, right?
Yeah, no, it's great. It's fantastic.
So tell us about the distillery we're going to be discussing this evening.
So this is our second visit onto Whisky Me. So our first go round was about 13 months ago. Unbelievably, it's been a very fast year, and we had the Chairman's Choice PX on. If anyone here was on at that time, so that was great. Telling you about our kind of oldest ever expression that has been rebranded and re-recipeed for 2025. And yes, so we are SPEY. All the whiskey we've made for the last sort of 12, 13 years has come from Speyside Distillery. And Speyside Distillery in May last year, so after the last Whisky Me, a few months after it, it was officially closed. First lost distillery in Scotland for, I think, 23 years. I believe Capardonich was the last one to officially close in 2001. So yeah, we are the first official distillery closure in 23 years in Scotland. So one page closed, or one book closes, another one opens. We're planning to build a new distillery. So SPEY, the brand, will continue to release, and we're planning to build a new distillery in the near future. It won't be called Speyside Distillery, it'll be called something else. But as I always say, if you don't tell me, because then I'll tell you. So I don't know what it's going to be called. So it'll be SPEY from X Distillery. But yeah, in the meantime, we are still producing great whiskey. So all the SPEY you're trying today, and any ones you want to buy in any of the shops that you go to, will always be SPEY from Speyside Distillery until probably you're talking maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 years time, when there could be some SPEY from another distillery. We'll see how it goes. But yes, tonight we're trying one of my favourites actually. This, I would say, the last one we tried, Chairman's Choice PX, was probably our most popular bottle around the world. And this one is only available in Europe, UK, and Canada. And this one is one of the more obscure whiskies we've ever done as a core range. So I'm quite excited to talk about it today.
So I feel like everyone is.
I'll let you get a word in, James, on it.
No, this is great. It's really fascinating to hear about sort of like distilleries and when they closed and the terminology lost distillery. But it's wonderful to hear that there are some plans in the works. But yeah, let's dive in, because I feel like everyone's a little bit thirsty and they want to try some whiskey. So yeah, please introduce the whiskey that we're going to be trying.
No problem. This one is called the SPEY Trilogia, and it is the fourth release in the what we call the Latin range. So if you knew the sort of early SPEY releases from 2014, would have been the SPEY Tenny, which was the port finish whiskey, and then in 2016 we released the SPEY Tritina, and the SPEY Femari. So SPEY Tritina was just straight bourbon, unpeated, and Femari was straight bourbon, peated. And we ran with those three whiskies for a long time as our European sort of expressions. And then in 2024, 2024, is that right? 26? No, 2022, sorry, 2022. I joined SPEY. I know time flies, but I joined SPEY in 2022. And one of my first meetings, I always said, I think it was like I said, why don't we mix the three? And they all looked at me around the table like I lost my marbles. But yeah, that was the start of it. And then we started investigating, is this possible? Can we do this? So yes, we decided let's give it a go. So we decided to make the SPEY sort of, we didn't know the name at the time, but the SPEY Triple, the three casks or the three core range products mixed together. And we went for, as you probably would have guessed, we went for 33% of each. Just bung them in a bottle, see what happens. And it was quite interesting actually. I would say the PT aspect was quite diminished, and it wasn't quite right. So the second iteration was we went for 50% peat or the Femari, 25% the other two, the port finish and the bourbon. So 25, 50. And we liked the PT level of it, but it wasn't, the port wasn't coming through now. And we've already just at that point, we mixed it all together and we put it in a first fill port cask again. So I always say the port part of the whiskey has been double ported. I don't know if that's a technical term, but that's what I say anyway. So yes, we then put it in the port cask, and then after about 5 months, we tested it, and we liked it. So what we like to do, I don't know if you've noticed, if you're a fan of Spirit of Speyside that's coming up in April, May, we like to experiment with casks, with a single cask for that festival. And in 2023, we bottled a 8-year-old, essentially a cask strength version, single cask strength version of the soon-to-be Trilogia. And we were quite pleased with the results. It's quite a fiery whiskey, so there was a lot of spice to it. But we really liked the flavours. We thought, oh, this is great. So then we left it in the cask for another about 11 months. And then we made it into our core range. So the Latin range, if you know, it's 46%. Natural colour, non-chill filter. So we've taken those casks and we made a batch of 6,000 bottles of those styles, and this is where the SPEY Trilogia became the 4th Latin range, and that's where we are. So now we should probably try the whiskey. So yeah, I was saying to James off camera, I said I managed to lose my Glencairn glass. I've got this mad tumbler, and I've got a wee plastic glass for nosing. This is my nosing glass, and then tumbler for drinking. So
it's all good. It's all good.
Do you know what? The most fun things are things that are not overly organised anyway. So
we had a lovely comment there of someone saying they're not particularly good at tasting whiskey. So they said it smelled like whiskey and it tastes like whiskey. So it's all, when you first start with whiskey, it can be quite overwhelming. And I think quite a good thing to sort of remember is actually there are no wrong answers. So what you taste is what you taste.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But yeah, give us a little rundown.
The wrong answers are the ones that are the most fun. So it's always interesting to see different people from different backgrounds and different spells on different stages of their whiskey journey, how they find a whiskey, because not everyone likes the same whiskey, and not everyone likes the same whiskey at the same time. Some people move on from whiskies, and some people go back to whiskies. So everyone's on a journey. So that's what makes it fun. It's such a conversational drink, whiskey. So. Yeah, as you said, no wrong answers. Lots of good people in the whiskey community. Lots of great, interesting viewpoints. So yes, if we have some sort of quite people new to whiskey, I'd say the Trilogia is actually quite complex for a whiskey in a core range, but it's still quite easy drinking. But for those sort of slightly more experienced drinkers, there's quite a lot going on, so it's a bit of a journey whiskey, which I think is great. So we think it's almost impossible to please everyone, but we think this should please the sort of experienced drinker, but also it should maybe be pick up and play, is that what you call it for the computer games? Pick up and play for the sort of new people. So this one, yeah, going back to whiskey. So on the nose, my wee plastic cup. So yeah, I always found the peat quite hidden on the nose in this. So even though it says 50%, so get a bit technical with the ppm. So ppm is just a peating level. So the Famari is that we make is about 20 ppm. That's really high for Speyside, but about halfway for Scotland in general. So most of your ales are 40 and 50. And then half of this is not peated. So you think, using some whiskey math, this is roughly a 10 ppm whiskey. I always think it's quite similar to Highland Park in sort of ppm levels. There's not many around that 10 mark. You might be able to fill me in, because I know a few 20s like Talisker, and I think Bimore's about 25. But there's not too many about the 10 mark, so I can't really think what's that kind of level of peating. I don't have that
I
much
think
knowledge, but
also
yeah, if anybody knows about it.
with the ppm, a lot of people ask me about that and they get quite concerned and they think, oh, they're both, I'm trying these two whiskies and they say that they're both, but they're coming across different. And I think ppm is a great thing to know, but don't worry about it too much, because sometimes, like we were talking before, it can be the perception. You can have two that are both at 40 ppm, but maybe one of the cask finishes, it might calm that smoke level down, or it
Yeah.
might amp it up. But let's go back to this one. I think this one's amazing because I think the smell is very, very different to actually the palate.
Yes, I'd say just on the ppm, I would say so. It's 10 parts per million, but I always wonder what's the other 990,000 parts, and somebody can fill me in with those details.
Very good point made. Very good point made.
So yes, so on the nose, I always I don't skip over the nose in this whiskey, but I always think it's quite a hard one to unearth what's going on. To be honest, I think you get the port. That's all. Port cask gives you all those sort of fruity, red berry, strawberry jam, raspberry jam kind of notes. But there's almost like a salty kind of edge to this one as well. So it's like almost like salted jam, which is quite strange because as you always say, our whiskies, we can do almost any whiskey, but we can't do salty because we're so central. We're right in the middle of Scotland, and I always say we can sort of imitate other styles, but the coastal Campbelltown or the North Coast sort of old Pulteney style, I've never seen in our whiskies. But I always get a wee kind of almost like salted strawberry, salted raspberry. But I don't know.
Well, how about this one for an
I
unusual
can't.
nose? I get like a strawberry cheesecake kind of, that kind of vibe. That's
Yeah,
my kind of thing. There
yeah.
you
I
go.
think the jamminess is a very big thing in the port casks that we usually use tawny port casks. So yeah, we always get the jammy notes, raspberry jam, dark fruits, slightly sharper than your sherry casks. So you always got kind of a slightly sharp note as well with port, which is good if it's balanced. But yeah, for me, I'm gonna pour this into my tumbler. So yeah, more fun part of the trying this. So it's like proper lost in translation glass. This one, look at and again, look at the difference in glass between your glass, the stem, and that's what I actually feel. That's my normal kind of glass, and then a tumbler with a empty bottom. Yeah, it couldn't get much different. So with this glass, you lose a lot of aromas, to be fair, but the tasting's pretty good out of a tumbler.
That's a very good point. While you actually make while you're tasting there, so with glassware, I think we always must remember that whiskey's a fun drink. So drink it however you want. But we've been talking about sort of like tasting and sort of like really understanding the whiskey. You are going to maybe want to look for a glass like this that does sort of have that sort of like closed nose, because as you mentioned there, with a tumbler, the
Yeah.
shape of it is going to make it very hard to sort of get any of the smells out of there.
Yeah, definitely. I love the stemmed glass as well. It's my favourite, just to kind of sort of move it between your sort of fingers like this. The Glencairn is obviously very. I think it's having its 25th anniversary just now. Actually, it's a very. It's a great glass because it just kind of put a whiskey glass on the map. But my favourite style is your style there. Just between your fingers, just to kind of roll the glass. You can assess the liquid in the glass, and the aromas get funneled as well, and it's really enjoyable to drink from. So yeah, I might pop down to Devon, just swap glasses, but
Oh, you're welcome anytime. You're welcome
nine
anytime.
hours. I don't know where it's going. It's probably just one of those things you find it as soon as you finish the video. You go, "Where's that glass going?" It's right there in front of your face. But yeah, just on the palate of this whiskey, because I love the balance of this whiskey. So I would say Trilogy is one whiskey where most of our whiskies are. We love our spirit, and we do a lot of wood selection and the timing. This one whiskey I'd say is probably the most. So using an old sort of Scottish phrase, skittled with or tinkered with. Maybe that's a Tinkerman from wee football reference to the old Leicester manager. So basically, we've done a lot of work on this after maturation, sort of blending together different single malts we have from Speyside Distillery, different styles. And yeah, this is, I'd say, a great representation of when you do get involved post maturation and trying to create a better whiskey than the sum of its parts. Now that's a good game to play. If we play the four space Latin whiskies in a row, and you can say here's the three constituent parts, and here's the one with all three. So yeah, that actually brings you on nicely to just on the bottle, down the bottom, tiny wee phrase here. So once we'd created the whiskey, we thought we need some marketing for this, and this is 2,000-year-old marketing. So it's fantastic. This is so Trilogia, I think it's from the Greek. This is the official definition: a set of three works of art that are connected, and that can be either seen as a single work or three individual works. I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, that's 2,000-year-old marketing there, perfect. So Tottina, Tawny, Famari, three world-class whiskies there in their own right. But combine them together, you get the Trilogia. So we love that that story about the Trilogia. And just on the whiskey, for me, the shining beacon from this whiskey is the get it back in frame, is the balance. So port casks and peated whiskey are hard to rein in at the best of times, and then if you combine them together, you really are asking for trouble. So I think the one thing we've achieved here is a fantastic balance, fantastic flow of the whiskey. For me, on the palate, starts off with all the port flavours, very sweet just initially, and then it just sort of glides into that smoke at the end. So I think the balance of this whiskey and the flow of this whiskey are the real standout points. And yeah, we think it's fantastic. So much so we stuck it in a few competitions back in when it first came out, and it won a huge award. But one you might not have heard of in the UK, it's called the what's it called? CMB Spirit Selections, which is based out of Brussels in Belgium and basically caters to Central Europe. And essentially, the Trilogia won Grand Gold and Revelation, which are basically saying it's the best whiskey they tried at judging. And we were up against really, really expensive whiskies. So that, obviously the money doesn't matter all the time, but it's quite. You're talking about when you're talking about older whiskies, you're generally talking about more expensive whiskies. You're generally talking about older whiskies. So I would say that is one of the proudest awards we've had. Definitely my time at SPEY, because basically it's one we've created from thin air, or not thin air, but you know what I mean. Like we created it, and it won huge awards. But it just one of those ones. One of those awards that doesn't reach the UK because there's so many UK awards. So the Europeans have really appreciated the Trilogia, and we're just getting a bit of traction in the UK. It's been a bit of a slow burn in the UK, but hopefully things like this will showcase this whiskey to a wider audience. And yeah, we are happy, delighted to put the Trilogia into any blind tasting you want. We are confident that it's going to raise a few eyebrows, and yeah, and I think the Whisky Me guys are going to put on a great offer tomorrow. So yeah, we're very excited.
I think we've spoken on a few past episodes about bourbon casks and sherry casks. Those are the most common casks that you'll sort of come across. It's great to sort of touch upon port today. I personally, as a whiskey drinker, I can sometimes find port aged whiskies. Port is a bit of a bully in my eyes. when it comes to whiskey finishes.
I agree.
And yeah, but this here is a great introduction into what port can bring to whiskey.
Yeah. You'll find at SPEY we are generally we sometimes use the strong casks and the strong styles, but we always do it in very small portions. We are all about balance and making it an enjoyable drink. So you'll never really find an extreme expression with SPEY unless it's bottled by somebody else. So they'll sometimes take something a bit extreme and bottle it themselves, like a third party potentially. But official releases from SPEY are usually on the softer side, but we aim for quality and approachability, but still interesting enough to keep the avid whiskey drinker engaged, because I don't think there's anything worse than a bland whiskey. That is the worst, isn't it? I mean, really. So I think we've always avoided being bland, but we've always been approachable. And I think this is one of the most extreme whiskies we've done in a lot of ways. But if you just poured it and drank it, you think, oh, this is quite a nice, easy drinking whiskey, and it is. But it's for us, this is quite extreme. As in the casks used, the style of whiskey, the fact that it's peated and unpeated married together. Yeah, there's a lot can go wrong with this, but thankfully didn't.
I think, especially with this whiskey, but also from the whole range from SPEY, I think it's an offering where you're often really rewarded for spending time. Spending some time with it. I often find that SPEY's quite. There's a lot of flavour that you can pull out from this distillery.
Yeah, and I say I'd say a good reason why whiskies have got that kind of connection with experienced whiskey drinkers like yourself is we do a long fermentation, so about 120 hours on average, which is way above industry average, and we do a slow distillation. So we distill it, or when we were open, we distilled the whiskey about half the speed of the kind of the whiskey, the average. So slow distillation, long fermentation. We think we make a quality spirit. From there, it's all about good wood selection, good timing, and yeah, some good blending as well with the case of this. But yes, we love finding new people trying SPEY because we think we're always going to surprise you. I always say if you like alcohol, you like whiskey, the SPEY range will find something for you, because we've got such an extreme, from something easy drinking like Chairman's Choice PX, right up to we've got the Fumari cask strength. You mentioned another one today. I think we've just got a new release of SPEY Brume cask strength, which is French virgin oak finish. So again, that's us experimenting with something a wee bit off the beaten track and coming up, we think, with another gem. So yes, we think we've got something for everyone. SPEY Trilogy is one of my favourites because I've been involved from the start to the finish, and I just think it's one of those ones that's quite quirky. Just to mention a couple of brands that have done this, because it's such an unusual triple cask, the bourbon, port, and peat. The Talisker Port Ree is probably the most famous version of this, but it's completely different whiskey from this. I think it's more that kind of coastal peat, so that kind of seaside flavours. Another one is Glenglassaugh Port Soy, if you've tried that. Again, very different whiskey. So, but I would always say, love a wee three whiskey tasting with that, and any other whiskies that people could think of that are the port, the bourbon, and the peat, because it's such an unusual recipe in whiskey. So I always look out for that triple cask and go, how good is their one? Because I think the trilogy is fantastic. So I'm extremely biased. So that's why we're doing these things, to find out what the public think and see what the reaction is, and it's always fantastic.
Well, we've had some lovely comments coming in, and it's wonderful to have a whiskey that's got so many cask influences.
Yeah.
You did mention at the beginning, so SPEY is a lost distillery. So because I normally ask, what's the future hold? So I appreciate there's some things you might not be able to say, but what are you guys looking to do in the future? What's going on?
So essentially, we've got tens of thousands of casks. We could continue the SPEY brand without having a distillery for, I think, probably a decade at least. But we want to be a distillery. We want to be creating whiskey. we want to lay down casks for the future to create SPEY for many years after that. So, yes, the wheels are in motion for a new distillery. The first step was to close the first distillery, so that's now completed. Stopped distilling November 2024, and the breakdown, and we finally closed the distillery in May 2025. So it's been closed now for coming up for. Well, we've not been distilling for coming up for a year and a half, and closed for coming up for a year. So it's amazing how time flies. But yes, I think the future is very positive for SPEY. So I'm very excited with the whiskies we're bringing out this year. We're bringing out some new releases this year. Some fantastic releases last year, and the trilogy was obviously released 2 years ago. But these are all fantastic whiskies, and we'll get a new distillery. We'll start creating whiskey, but we won't obviously release that for many, many years to come. But yes, in the meantime, SPEY should be enjoyed, and it's obviously it's a finite. I mean, we do have a lot of casks, but it's still a finite whiskey you're trying now. So whiskey will never be made again. And yes, every bottle you drink out there, one bottle less ever. So yeah,
Depleting
interesting times.
So yeah, we will be everyone that as part of Whisky Me, you'll have the option tomorrow to pick up this bottle at a really great price. I will warn you though, they are incredibly tall bottles. I've got one here. So if you do have a whiskey shelf, you're going to need to put it up near the top because it's not going to fit in the normal ones.
So
very striking indeed.
So it's I think we're definitely the tallest single malt out there. But I think we're roughly the same size as something like Bimber. Is that maybe something around that sort of level?
Okay.
There's another single, was it independent bottler called Rare Find? They're very tall as well. And some tequila bottles are extremely tall as well. So yeah,
this is definitely what the top. Us whiskey drinkers, we need to take these things into account because otherwise they're not going to fit on our shelves. That was wonderful. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
Like you see, your top shelf's got no limit there, so I'm sure we can get some space in that top shelf there. So
just there. I think you can see there's two we've got there.
Is that SPEY?
Yeah, two SPEYs there and a SPEY there. So very on brand.
Comfortably on this. Perfect. I didn't really say too much there, James. But yeah, if you maybe next time I'll let you jump in. But trilogy's got so much to talk about, so. It's one of those whiskies. It's there's a lot of different factors to how it is made and how it was received. So it's fantastic to talk about it.
Yeah, great. And you're going to join us again at the end as well. So I will catch up with you in a minute.
No problem. Right? Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you later, guys.
Oh, that was fascinating. We mainly were talking about casks there, three different casks coming together and then being finished again in another port cask. Lots of flavors in that one. And we did also touch upon near the end there about having a long fermentation time and then a slow distillation. We probably should have gone into a bit more detail about that, but a little brief overview. When you're fermenting, you're creating alcohol, but if you can slow that process down, there's a tendency to bring out more flavors in the distillate. And when we're talking about slowing it down during the stills, just gives you a little bit more control so you can decide what flavors actually you want to take out of the still. Anyway, enough of the geeky stuff. Let's see who our next guest is. Hello.
Hello, James. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
Thank you. Very good. Very good. I enjoyed listening to Andrew there, all about about SPEY. I think we're slightly different, and yet we have a lot in common as well.
So we're no longer in Scotland. If you could introduce yourself and introduce the distillery that you're coming from.
Yeah. So hello, everybody. My name is Michael Scully. I am the founder of Clonakilty Distillery, which is located in Southern Ireland. We're for those of you that would know Ireland, we're in County Cork. We're right down at the southwestern tip of Ireland. We're actually, our whisky warehouse is the most southerly warehouse in the island of Ireland. And we call ourselves the Atlantic Distillery because we are actually on the coast. We distill our whiskey on the coast. We grow our own barley by the coast, and we mature it by the coast, right on the Atlantic. So it's a pretty unique space and place to make some exceptional whiskies. It's yeah, my background is I'm actually a farmer. I got this crazy idea back around 2014 or thereabouts that I wanted to do something different with my life, and I wanted a little bit more excitement. So I took the crazy decision to start making whiskey. And some people sort of ask, well, why did you do that? And I suppose I'm really proud of the area we live in. I'm really proud of I'm naturally a farmer. I know we can grow great barley. We've got great soil, and we're right next to the ocean. Like drinking whiskey. So just all the stars came together, and one day I just said to myself, well, why not actually start making some whiskey here? And the original plan, of course, was to convert a small little shed on the farm and do something quite small. But then I realized I didn't know anything about whiskey, so I said I have to surround myself here with people that are better than I am and know more than I am in these things. And so we had to hire a distiller, so it had to become a certain size to pay for those wages, and then a warehouse keeper to pay for those. So the whole business has actually morphed into something quite a lot bigger than what I had originally intended, but it's still a relatively small operation. So that was back in 2014, 2015, thereabouts. We took the one day then, sorry, I was going to put it on the farm, the distillery, but we're in such an area of scenic beauty. The local planners, they were not too happy about putting a distillery in such a beautiful spot. So I was driving through my local town of Clonakilty, and there was this building sitting idle and empty for the previous 10 years, which originally was built, it was meant to be a bank, but it was never occupied. And a light bulb went off in my head that, yeah, maybe we can buy that building and put our distillery in there. And within 2 weeks, I had a deal done on the building, and started the company. And it took us 4 years from the time that I got that idea to actually do the research, travel all over the world, see the best with my wife, try and get best practice everywhere, inspired by a few different places as well. And by the time we got that and our financing and our building permits and our commissioning and all of that, it was 2019 before we distilled our first whiskey. So we're up and running and making what I believe is really good liquid since 2019. So the whiskey I'm going to talk to you about tonight is our core premium course core bottle, which is our single pot still, Clonakilty single pot still. So you're going to ask, what is single pot still whiskey, for those people that don't that might be confused, because everybody gets confused with the name single pot still. It's quintessentially an Irish type whiskey. It's made from malted barley and unmalted barley. So it has nothing to do with the fact it's distilled in pots. It's just a really unfortunate name and a very, very confusing name to describe it properly. The malted barley is obviously goes through the maltsters like the majority of Scottish whiskey. The unmalted barley comes straight off the combine without any pre-treatment, or it just goes into it. We dry it and store it for the winter and take it in every week to the distillery. But it brings it would be seen in Ireland as being the premium whiskey. It's almost a different category to standard malted whiskey, and it would be seen as more premium. It brings a lot of different flavors, and it brings a spiciness that you don't get, that the extra spiciness compared with normal whiskey, and different mouthfeels. So it's quite a complex whiskey. We are one of the very few distilleries. We took a decision at the start when we were designing the whole plant that we wanted to specialize in making single pot still. So we do make single malt, but our core reason for being is to make exceptional single pot still whiskey. So it's one of the very few whiskey distilleries in Ireland that was designed from scratch to make a pot still whiskey, because it does need different equipment and different treatment. And I think we've done a pretty good job at it. We've won the at the World Whisky Awards. We've won Ireland's best new make spirit for our pot still in 3 occasions. We're the only Irish distillery to have done it more than once, and got a lot of awards for this whiskey as well.
I wonder if you could take us through some of the. You said that you travelled the world looking up for the best practices. I wonder what.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, okay, I broke up there. Okay, you got me. Yeah,
I've got
sorry.
you.
Okay, yeah, sorry, James. Yeah,
Not a problem. Not a problem. We're all drinking whiskey, so it's okay.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so that's the background to the distillery. It's let's pour the dropper. I'm sure everybody else has poured a drop at this stage, so I'm going to have one for myself. What we're drinking here is 46% ABV. It's a relatively young whiskey. It is, as I said, we only started distilling in 2019, so this would be about 6 years old. It would have spent 3 years in a bourbon cask, and then it's mostly finished in Amontillado sherry, which is a very dry sherry, very unusual finish as well. So there's a little bit of Oloroso there, but mostly Amontillado. I'm getting on the nose, I'm getting a vanilla sweetness, and the Demerara sugar, citrus peel, maybe kiwi. So of course it's triple distilled. Again, most Irish whiskies would be triple distilled, so that makes it slightly different to Scotch. It actually is quite different to Scotch. It's and I'm not saying Scotch is bad, and I'm totally biased, but we really do prefer Irish whiskey here. It's it will be a lighter spirit than the heavier Scotches, but the fact that the pot still is there and it brings this spiciness and this coating in the mouthfeel as well. It just coats the inner of the palate. That works for me anyhow.
So I think this would be a good opportunity to really drill down on those differences. You've already sort of started to talk about it with the raw ingredients, but we'll start with Scotch single malt just as a broad over term. So it's malted barley, water and yeast. That's fermented, and then that'll be distilled, and then distilled again, and then aged in oak cask. So that's Scotch single malt. So if you could now explain what we're tasting here and what's happened, the processes that are different, and what that then leads to in the taste.
Yeah. Well, I'm the founder. I'm not a technician, but I will do my best. So
I'm sure you'll do a great job.
Yeah, thank you. The fundamental difference is that we use raw barley, which is a lot harder than malted barley. So if you malt the barley seed, what happens is you wet the barley barley grains you soak them in water for maybe 24 hours or thereabouts, and that promotes the sprouting of the seed. You trick the seed into sprouting, which releases the starches inside in the little barley seed, and once it starts to sprout, then you actually dry it really quickly to remove the moisture again, because if you don't do that, it'll continue sprouting and it'll continue eating up the starches inside in the barley grain, and you won't. If you do that, of course, you'll have nothing left for your whiskey. So you need to start that process and then stop it. But what you get is a really soft grain inside, and that's really easy to process, and it gives a different flavor to the raw barley. The raw barley is a lot harder, and we have to firstly put it through a different mill, because the mill, when we grind it down to the we have to flatten it out to grind each individual grain. So you have to use a mill where you can adjust the settings halfway through the process. We typically our mash would be about 1.5 ton of barley for each batch we do. So we'd have about 60% unmalted and 40% malted barley in each batch. So we'd use, what's the maths, maybe 850 kilos of the raw barley, and that goes through first. It's ground down with the mill wheels really close, and then it's put into a special vessel called a mash conversion vessel, where it soaks in hot water for 3 or 4 hours just to soften it. But and then it brings it back to the same consistency as the malt, which goes in afterwards. And then that goes into the lauter tun. And the process after that then in the lauter tun is similar to what happens with traditional whiskey making. It's interesting, actually, James was talking about fermenting for 120 hours, because we actually ferment for 140 hours. And SPEY is the first distillery in Scotland I've ever heard that actually do 120, and well done, because we believe it makes a huge difference to the flavour of our whiskies and the character afterwards. Again, I'm going to get a little bit technical here, but the yeasts after 92 hours, the yeasts, you add a yeast and just to start the fermentation process. And after 92 hours, the yeast consumes itself. So then it starts a secondary fermentation, and that brings a lot of different flavors and aromas. It's a sort of the whiskey or the wort, it attracts the wild yeasts that are in the atmosphere and in the area. In our case, it gives a lot more floral category, floral flavors, and I think that comes through in our whiskies as well. They're elegant, smooth whiskies with these floral notes in them, and that's what happens. And they're slightly more complex because of that. And we have really tall necks on our stills, which keeps it milder, more elegant as well, which again is exasperated with the triple distilling. So that's good. So it's a very, very drinkable, smooth whiskey. Like this whiskey is just going 6 years old. It tastes like something that's probably 10 plus. So it's got this the complexity as well. It doesn't taste like a 6-year-old whiskey. There's no spirit burn or anything like that on it. It's pretty exceptional. We were thrilled last year. We entered it in the San Francisco World Spirits Competition, which, as you know, would be one of the probably the Olympics of drinks competitions, in my opinion, actually. And it's we got a double gold and 97 points, and it was just over a 5-year-old whiskey at that point when it was entered. So it was a pretty exceptional score for such a young whiskey. So we're very proud of it.
Yeah, a wonderful whiskey. And just, you have already mentioned, but just take us through the casks that we have here.
Yeah. So when we started off, we got a new distillery. We did everything humanly possible to make the very best spirit we could, but there's no guarantee that you will make a great spirit. And you don't really know when you design a distillery what ultimate flavors you're going to get. So we really couldn't do a cask program at the start when we started. So what we'd say is we'll put everything into bourbon for the first 3 years, and we'll see how the spirit is reacting and how it's working in these American bourbon casks. And after 3 years, then we had our base spirit, and we decided that we'd have to do a trial and look at different casks to finish the different casks, to finish our whiskies, to see what would be our preferred flavor and our core expression. So we tried 4 or 5 different sherry casks. We had Oloroso, we had Amontillado, Pedro Jimenez, there's Fino, there's a few others, and then we also have we do a port cask finish. We were talking about port earlier, so we tried them all as to which finish we wanted to have make our core expression, and Amontillado was the one that we chose that came out best. It's drier, it's not overpowering. You talked earlier about maybe the port taking over a whiskey. And we're also aware you don't want whatever finish you're there to actually take over, because if you've got a really good spirit, you want it to complement the base spirit without totally overpowering it. And we felt that the Amontillado, because it's a drier whiskey, it's able to do that, and that complements the whiskey that we have rather than totally overpowering it. And it works for us. It's a very unusual finish. It's gone down really well. People really enjoy it. And we do offer the other expressions, but this is our core. It gives you know, on the finish you're getting wood spices again. And that's probably exasperated from with the single pot still, the raw barley coming through there. I'm getting dark chocolate and orange on the finish, and I'm not sure what you're getting, James, or your everybody else on the call.
Oh, we've had some comments coming through about what they're tasting. Everyone's enjoying it, and what I would say is it's really lovely to start seeing more and more distilleries using the drier styles of sherries and not being afraid of them, because for a long time it was quite in vogue to go for the much sweeter. If Oloroso is kind of the core range, you know, all the way over to the Oloroso. But actually, I think those drier sherries, they really can make quite a complex whiskey, and this is one of them, I would say.
Yeah, I think it allows the quality of the base spirit to shine through without over pouring it, so it complements rather than takes over 100%. Yeah.
So when we first started this conversation, you started the story by saying that you're a farmer, but you wanted to add to your legacy. So you started this distillery on the coast. What do you see happening in the future?
Well, it's a family business. My son is involved in America with it. He sells the West Coast, and he's in charge of sales in the West Coast of America. We in the future, I think my personal goal is to have the Clonakilty brand recognized as being a premium spirits brand in all the major whiskey markets of the world. So it's a pretty big goal, actually, but I think it takes a long time. It's taken longer, and it's a lot harder and a lot more expensive than I expected when I started. But I think every entrepreneur, they say that, yeah. But it's we're in this for the long term. I'm eighth generation myself, going back 320 years on the family farm. So we would like that to continue, and I think our core ethos would be very much into sustainability. We're very proud that we are the first B Corp certified whiskey distillery in the European Union. So we're very proud of that. We got our B Corp certification last year, and that's very special to us. We do the other thing that we do which is quite different, is that we grow our own barley, we distill it, we mature it, we blend it, and we bottle it. So we do absolutely everything in-house in Clonakilty, so that we've got full control over the quality of everything we do, and we're able to be flexible with our customers. So that's really important to us, and everything we do with regards to sustainability and all of that is really important as part of the culture of the company. It's I think one of the I'm gonna name check Kilhoman, so you're probably a lot of your people on the call, they would be familiar with Kilhoman, and it was one of the distilleries that was inspirational for me when I did my tours back in 10 years ago now, because it's very like us. It's a farm distillery. They do what they do locally. It's no, it's an Islay. It's a very different whiskey because it's an Islay whiskey, and it's peated, where we're triple distilled single pot still Irish. So it's a really different whiskey. But I think the ethos of the company is very similar. Yeah, they're probably around 10 years longer than we are, but you know, we would aspire to be maybe the Irish version of a Kilhoman for regards to the ethos of being on the farm and doing our barley and doing everything as much as we can in-house. So it's that's interesting. One interesting. Oh yeah, well, I'm going to two interesting stories. That one is every bottle of Clonakilty, you'll see there's a whale's tail on it. So people ask, why is there a whale's tail? So we grow our whiskey right on the edge of the ocean. Our barley fields go right down to the coast by the Gallyhead Lighthouse, which is an iconic lighthouse in Southern Ireland. And just off that, there's 3 humpback whales, and they live there permanently. So so that was the inspiration, because it's where the land meets the sea, and these amazing creatures, they live permanently just off our coast. That was our inspiration. So if it doesn't have a whale logo on it, it's not a bottle of Clonakilty. I think that's one thing to remember from our brand. And the other thing is just an interesting story of a special release. You said you're talking about the future. So back when I started in 2015, I wanted to do something that's really, really different. If starting a distillery wasn't. So I went to the Irish National Seed Bank, where they keep these ancient barley varieties, and there was a variety called Goldthorpe, which was last grown by my great grandfather on the farm back around the turn of the last century, around 1900. I think it was grown up to about 1910, and they had some of that old seed. It took me about 6 months. Eventually, they gave me this much seed, enough to put into the palm of my hand. So I got that and I spread that on the ground. The first year I harvested and I got a bucket of seed. So the next spring I spread that. I scattered that bucket on the land, and I got a wheelbarrow of seed. And every year just propagating more and more. And it's a really difficult crop to grow, because it's with genetic modification, not GM, but with genetic progress in seed over the last 100 years. This yields about 50% of modern varieties, and it lodges because it's really tall, and it's more prone to disease and all of that. So it's been a very, very difficult, expensive crop to grow. But that wasn't the point. The point being that we wanted to make something that was absolutely unique and a world first. So in 2021, we managed to get enough barley to, up to then we would have been harvesting with garden equipment and my garden trimmers and all of that, because there just wasn't enough to run through a big combine. But in 2021, we had enough to make enough grain to distill it ourselves and still save some seed for the following year. So we've had 4 years now of this amazing variety, and it's the only triple distilled single pot still Goldthorpe whiskey in the world, and we're going to be releasing that. I'd say maybe in about 18 months' time, 12, 18 months' time. It's going to be very limited release, but it will become part of a collectible item, and that's really exciting to have something like that coming on stream. And it's absolutely world exclusive, and will not be repeated again. So it's just one of the little stories about where we see ourselves going.
Gosh, what a fascinating story. Well, thank you so much for telling us your story and sharing your whiskey with us. And you're going to join us again in a moment as well.
Thank you, James.
Thank you so much. Gosh, isn't that fascinating? I love doing these whiskey me's, because you never quite know where you're going to go, and how wonderful to hear about resurrecting that specific type of barley. I think an overarching thing today is kind of the influence that casks can have. So we've gone from the sort of the drier style of the sherry to the more unctuous portwood. Two wonderful whiskies here. I hope that you've enjoyed them, and now hopefully both our guests can come back. Look at that. Are we nearly there? Yes. I love it. Andrew, what did you think about that then?
Yeah, fantastic. The thing about whiskey is, I always think it's a wee bit like football clubs, where people don't really get into it for financial gain. It's like a bit of a sort of a passion and love of making whiskey, or doing something, creating something from what's grown on the farm to something different. So, yeah, the story in Scotland and Ireland is fantastic, of these smaller distilleries just creating something from an old barn or an old building, and then a field, and then a few experienced people who know what they're doing, add them into the mix, and you get a fantastic product that goes all around the world, which I love. Is I always think it's great when you go around the world and you see, because my family are from Islay, and you see a bottle of Ardbeg or Lafroig on the shelf, and you go, that's from a small island off the west coast of Scotland. I'm sure the same story in Ireland, where you go, that's from a small place, and yet it's over in New York City or Shanghai or wherever, and you go, it's quite mind blowing. But yeah, it's people like Michael who are taking the extra step to go and make these products from nothing. That's the start of the story, and it ends up being, yeah, fantastic, brilliant, love it.
So we have a bit of a tradition here. I'm going to ask you both, and I'll probably start with you, Michael. Where do you see the whiskey industry going?
I think I think there's going to be a big move towards authenticity. I think the consumer, in everything they do, not just whiskey, but in everything these days, there's a lot of falseness out there. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors. It exists, unfortunately, in the whiskey industry as well as every other industry. And I think the consumer will become more and more discerning in seeking out authentic brands. I think there always will be room for smaller distilleries like ours, because people want stories, and they want something that's special and unique, and they want something that's fermented for 120 or 140 hours that the big guys can't really do because it just doesn't make money for them, but the small guys can, because it's all about quality. So there's always little niches for us. There's no doubt it's a really difficult time at the moment in the industry. There's a lot of headwinds. Affordability is the biggest, I think the biggest headwind, which and uncertainty. Because when consumers are uncertain about things, they tend to keep their hands in their pockets, and they'll trade down. They won't spend a huge amount of money on a whiskey, and they're looking for something that's more approachable price wise, but they still want quality. But I think those brands that will be able to do that, and we have adjusted our ranges and our offerings to suit those types of consumers. I think the brands that do that and get through, I think they will be appreciated and be stronger than ever once we get out of the current challenges, which hopefully will be sorted within the next 1 or 2 years.
Over to you, Andrew. Where do you see the whiskey industry going?
I pretty much echo what Michael's saying there. So, yeah, it's been a tough time. I think the phrase going around was "survive 25," and I think it's some sort of rhyme to go 26 as well. So it is super tough. But I think what it does, it just it makes you look at your products and go, what does the consumer want, or what's achievable just now. So we're always looking at we want to be price friendly but still quality. So, and it's super tough because everything's going up. I mean, not to bore everyone with the economics, but the labels, the glass, the corks, the malt. One of the things that's actually helping us just now is the fact that we're not distilling. So it's quite a short term relief for us. But the cost of actually distilling products and then just put them into storage for 10 years or whatever, it's very expensive. So whiskey is, it's a tough game just now, but we're optimistic. We're super optimistic. We think things like this, Whiskey Me, is fantastic. An idea to get whiskey to people's houses without them leaving the comfort of their own home. Plus, they get to talk to the producers. So I think in tough times, everyone gets creative. So I think it's in the long term. This is, even they may not feel it, it's probably quite a good time for whiskey because it just kind of realigns itself. Innovation, all sorts of things happen, and then when the times are good for everyone, it's great. But yeah, super tough, but optimistic that we are on the right path. That's what I'd say is where we are.
Very good. Oh, well, thank you both so much for joining me. Both fantastic whiskies. So congratulations to you both. And hopefully we'll see you again on another Whiskey Me in the future. I'm going to say goodbye to both of you now, and then I'm going to close up the show. So thank you so much. Cheers.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I say this all the time, but I genuinely mean this. I love doing this show. And thank you for spending your time with us this evening. Both of these bottles will be available tomorrow at a special rate for you guys. So keep a lookout for your emails. But until next month, I hope you have a lovely time. Enjoy the spring. And cheers. Have a good evening. Bye.